International Conference on Arts and Humanities.
I thank the organizers of the conference for providing this opportunity for sharing my research. My area of research is contemporary temple painting that has a direct link to tradition. It's a little takeoff from what Dr. Peng presented, in the sense that she spoke about tradition. I'll be speaking about the contemporary aspect of the same tradition. The canon of art history, like most other canons, is based on taxonomic hierarchy, and hence makes sense only when it excludes a large body of what are considered non-canonical and therefore inferior materials. Just as the sacred cannot exist without its profane counterpart, so also the canonical cannot survive without its non-conformist antithesis, the non-canonical. Indian art history is hindered by an exclusionist agenda, where visual manifestations of culture are segregated in terms of art and craft. The religious mural tradition in southern India, dating from ancient times, has been acknowledged as art. This is due in no small measure to royal patronage and the position of painting as an adjunct to temple architecture and sculpture. In current South Indian art historical practice, the mural tradition in its canonical form, as having emanated from the Ajanta style of painting, is seen as having ended in the 18th century, with the fall of the Vijayanagara and Nayaka dynasties. While murals are still being painted in temples today, and the tradition still continues in good vigor, these contemporary paintings are excluded from the grand narrative. This paper privileges the popular and seeks to reject the idea of separation of high and low art, using the religious mural tradition in Tamil Nadu as case study. The paper also states that there is a need to understand plurality of expression and embrace it within the mainstream of Indian art. These contemporary paintings need to be seen as the trajectory of traditional painting in their contextualization within the mural tradition. The Western stereotyping of Indian art, based on colonialist agenda, has proven the need for an appropriate framework to objectively assess and appreciate the richness of Indian art's many histories. Indian art scholarship during the last 2 centuries has concentrated primarily on temple architecture and sculpture, while painting has been relatively neglected, except for the murals at Ajanta. In a modern, scientifically driven world, where religion sometimes stands on a shaky platform, the connection between man and the gods sometimes needs to be made by employing a naturalistic approach. The popular imagery that has found place in the minds of the masses then needs to be reinvented or represented for acceptance. Colonialization saw the coming in of the Western academic presentation, which had the Indian artist attempting to master Western perspective and the medium of oil painting. Raja Ravi Varma played an important role, for in his attempt to depict the Hindu pantheon, he gave new form to traditional figures. His borrowings from proscenium theatre, in terms of costume and background, added a further dimension to the genre of religious painting. With the advent of the printing press, the market for religious images grew enormously. The phenomenal circulation of images allowed for their ubiquitous presence. Realism, as appropriated from the colonizer, is the bridge that helped the mythic become the historic. What was seen as belonging to a mythological past is grounded in the present. This is achieved by the allusion to realism, even magic realism, which provides authenticity to the image. The photographic studio backdrop, which serves as background, and the collaging of styles of representation, creating a popular pastiche, suggests familiarity with the visual culture of the immediate past. Recession of space and the use of the fixed point of view are characteristic features that are derived from outside influences. Anuradha Kapoor states that what were earlier considered as mere iconographic marks of identification now gained materiality, and with that historicity and direction. And for now, the past and the present almost look the same, and the time of the gods appears to be our historical and even contemporary time. Colonial realism, in its continued transformation, passed from the rigorous mimicry to a new hybrid realism. Looking at the historical aspect, each new interpretation of the age-old theme adds to the character of the mythology being presented and represented. In its representation, newer elements emerge unwittingly, keeping with the idea of progress. Considering the manner in which the murals are painted or represented, the old is renewed rather than merely replaced while retelling stories. In these contemporary temple paintings, there is the conversion of a classical art form into a popular art form. The traditional type has been manipulated to cater to mass appeal and articulate belief. The changes being made in the murals mirror contemporary reality. This is seen in the appropriation of the style of calendar art and god posters from the walls of homes onto temple walls. Tapti Guha Thakurta considers the effect of realism as seen in the loud colors employed in calendar art as stepping beyond the parameters of the world, of the real and temporal into a world of mythic exuberance. Realism itself suffered many dilutions as it was accommodated within existing iconographic conventions. What seemed as alien Western influences in Indian pictures were indigenized and made to serve different ends within the framework of popular iconography. Similarities may also be seen with the calendar art from Sivagasi, which has a characteristic look, namely strong, deeply saturated, contrasting colors with bright highlights. Kajri Jain states that while this characteristic appearance may be ascribed to the manual retouching of film after color separation when the artwork is being readied for mechanical reproduction, the Sivakasi look may also be attributed to popular taste, or more specifically to South Indian taste. These paintings are modern in that they are neither traditional nor classical. In keeping with the contemporary concept of modernities, these paintings find their place as one among the multiple modernities existing in the world of art today. These temple murals are modern, not merely in their style of representation, but in their ability to combine various aspects of the modern into a cohesive whole. The borrowings from other moderns, such as cinema, photography, and print media, and their ability to synthesize these borrowings allows them to be termed modern. The intervisuality between different media further grants the contemporary painting's authority and authenticity. This can be seen in their references to and reflections of Ravi Varma oleographs, calendar art, theatre backdrops, photography, and cinema, which are themselves considered as modern. Postmodernism acknowledges that every artist derives material from the past, and that the subversion of the notion of originality through appropriation may be accepted practice in art. Given the post-colonial situation within which the ideology of postmodernism operates, these contemporary mural paintings may be seen as quotidian. They may probably be viewed as being used to deconstruct the authority of the classical canon. These borrowings from popular culture and the amalgamating of the different visual representations are held up against the earlier classical mural tradition, which has been acknowledged status of high art. Popular culture is usually seen as distinct from folk culture in that it is mass-produced, and it is seen as different from high culture in that it is mass-consumed. These contemporary paintings fit into the realm of popular culture in terms of their many borrowings, not being confined to local identity as in folk art. They possess the authenticity of handcrafting as opposed to being machine-made or mass-produced. In being original, while being derived from popular culture, these paintings lay claim to the aura of the original and thereby authenticity. Additionally, they also possess the authenticity of being part of a living religious culture. Their presence in most temples in Tamil Nadu proclaims their acceptance by all strata of society. These paintings appeal to the masses and may be thus seen as part of popular culture. However, their belonging within the temple precinct and their adherence ideologically and metaphorically to an ancient classical tradition of painting seemingly accords these paintings a place in high culture in mass consciousness. Further, they possess the nobility of the classical theme and the function of temple murals. In terms of representative style, these contemporary murals draw on popular culture. In terms of technique, they rely on modern materials having abandoned traditional pigments. While fitting within the formula of the modern, these representations are attractive in their familiarity and their predictability. The contemporary temple murals are indirect products of mechanical reproduction. They are produced from the influence and inspiration provided from mechanically reproduced visuals in the form of chromolithographs and offset prints. These in turn have originated from hand-rendered paintings. The contemporary paintings are essentially composed of borrowed elements, with nothing being done in explicit imitation. The style of these paintings itself has moved away from conventional representation and has developed to incorporate elements from company school painting, theatre and photography. Company school painting was the platform that allowed the absorption of Western ideas and artistic techniques in the Indian tradition while maintaining an essential Indianness. Early 20th century photography provides the tableau-like compositions, while proscenium theatre suggests the use of foreground space and the unidirectional arrangement of the figures. These elements, brought together through calendar art and board posters, have given their characteristics to contemporary mural paintings in temples. Hybridity is thus a fundamental feature of this genre, which does not solely belong to either the traditional or the modern. It draws from both and is premised on the assumption that change is inevitable with time, growth, and exchange. The artist has inherited the imagery from various sources, many of which are not immediate to the artist. While traditional Indian art has set conventions, various events in the nation's history have seen to it that the styles are imbricated and other stimuli are absorbed, engendering inclusivity. The period of colonial rule has given what was once foreign much familiarity. Borrowing is not seen as a derogatory quality, but is accepted as a norm. With the presence of the calendar print, there is the creation of a devotional identity through the use of hybrid element. Acceptance has been created by familiarity with the image, allowing the visual image a prime place within the sanctified space. Most often, art is categorized as high, low, primitive, or modern. However, it must be remembered that in some images, functionality does not require the notion of art or ranking, and that all images need not fill an aesthetic criteria. Moreover, these rankings are based on aesthetic, not on devotional value. Response to art lies not in detached formalism, but in being tuned into feelings and emotions. These contemporary murals may be viewed as part of a living art rather than a historical artifact. We do not possess the luxury of hindsight to judge these paintings yet. And yet, it must be admitted that the paintings are an integral aspect of social change and reveal the paradigm shift in visual culture. The mural tradition itself may be considered as moving from the status of high art to popular visual culture. What was once in the realm of high art has now become popular expression and perhaps reflects the aspirations and lifestyles of the masses. Areas of research, such as the contemporary mural paintings, raise fundamental questions about future developments in the study of art, requiring the mapping of new areas of inquiry and the formulation of new ways of exploring them. In fulfilling the need for a pedigree, modernism in the West was explained through an overly simplified schematic representation of its development, as seen in Alfred Barr's iconic chart from 1936. This representation, however, implies a linear and quantifiable flow to artistic progression, which is never the case. Art is often bound by intangible, at times accidental influences that propel one school of thought to the next. The contemporary temple murals, referenced here, can already boast of such a pedigree as implied by Barr, and also lay claim to the influences of material technology, for they possess the pedigree of the canonical traditional mural on the one hand, and that of Ravi Varma's realist style and its adaptations on the other. As Frank Kermode stated in his Forms of Attention, the canon is influenced by the taste, art, and fashion of the day, and art historical research is often directed by current trends. Once objects are embraced as interesting, they eventually find their way to the canon. With a focus on popular visual culture, such as calendar art and cinema hoardings, which have been made the subject of study in the past 2 decades, temple murals, which have been adorning temple walls in their newer avatar through the last half-century, can indeed be deemed as worthy of study. To the question of whether Indian art history should be rewritten, the short answer is yes. It should be rewritten with a predilection towards inclusivity to bring within its ambit popular visual culture rather than divorcing it from its past. Thank you.